Since the invention of the steam engine, the automobile industry has never stopped growing. Over the past 100 years, the number of new cars sold has gone from 500,000 per year to 90 million. It's the world's largest industrial market. But automobiles are now undergoing a revolution.
It's a very powerful movement, and I don't think we can see the range of consequences yet.
It's over for the car as your parents knew it, as a status symbol and object of desire. In big cities, it has become synonymous with pollution and wasted time. What was once a symbol of freedom has become a burden, and fewer young people even have a driver's license.
There are too many cars on the road. There's no need to own your own car. You can get wherever you want by sharing a car.
In 5 years' time, you won't recognize your car. Electric cars are everywhere. Car sharing is increasingly popular, but an even bigger revolution is on the way.
I think almost all cars produced will be autonomous in 10 years.
The autonomous car, it drives itself. The biggest car makers didn't see it coming, but now they all want one.
The Renault-Nissan Alliance is committed to delivering 10 models with autonomous drive functionality by 2020.
Faced with the car's metamorphosis, will the traditional automakers be able to transform themselves? New, extremely aggressive competitors are determined to get their own slice of the pie. For some months, the traditional automobile manufacturers have been trying to show that they're in the race, offering test rides and prototypes of their autonomous cars. We searched for someone devoted to the pleasures of driving to take part in this experience. We found him in France, a driver who resists modernity at the wheel of a mythical car from the 50s, the Citroën DS.
Driving a DS is unique. There's nothing like it. It feels like a magic carpet ride over air, water, the road. It's great.
How will our car lover react to the wheel of a self-driving vehicle? We made an appointment at one of Europe's oldest car builders. PSA has been making automobiles since 1891.
Bonjour.
Eh bien, bonjour.
Hello. Hello, Matthias.
Matthias.
Bon, bah, vous allez prendre place,
Well, take your seat aboard this autonomous car. Okay, let's go. So, please sit on the driver's seat since you'll be able to drive the vehicle. Please, take a seat. The belt? I feel like I'm passing my license.
Voilà. Et après, donc, dans un premier temps, on va
You drive
conduire
normally,
manuel,
and then on the
l'avoir
highway,
en
let it self-drive.
mode autonome. Donc là, on est sur un prototype, c'est-à-dire pour ça qu'il y a ici.
This is a prototype, dual commands, just for safety reasons, which is how we receive permission for people who are not PSA group experts to get behind the wheel of the prototypes.
C'est grâce à ça, d'ailleurs,
The engineers were allowed to test their prototypes on this portion of the highway.
Du groupe PSA au volant de nos prototypes.
Soon you'll be able to activate the autonomous mode. We need to be set well on the road. Wait a little.
Et là, à partir de
And then
maintenant,
from now on, you press and let go.
tout lâcher. Lâchez tout.
Off the wheels, pedals, everything.
Vous pouvez vraiment lever les mains.
You can really raise your hands higher. There's no problem. It manages.
C'est difficile.
It's difficult to let go of the wheel. It's frightening. Feels like someone is driving for you, hidden in the car. It's very strange. Actually, I don't really trust it.
The car is now set at 110 kilometers per hour, and it is driving by itself.
I do think there are little jolts. It does seem as if there are little jolts.
Ça génère des petits à-coups.
C'est vrai que peut-être.
It's true that perhaps the system responds more quickly than a driver. So there is a car that's come into the lane, and we're going to gradually distance ourselves to allow for the safety margin.
Là, nous justement, on respecte vraiment.
It really obeys the rules of the road.
C'est-à-dire, bah non, il faut laisser de la distance. C'est vrai qu'on n'a pas l'habitude.
We're not really used to that.
Et voilà, là, on se dit, mais là, peut-être qu'on aurait pu...
Ma femme va
My wife will love that.
The car maintains a safe distance set against the car ahead and speed limit while staying between the lines. But as it reaches an exit, it seems to suddenly want to escape. The engineer pulls the steering wheel.
Waouh.
It changed lanes. Yeah, it wanted to exit. Yikes.
Ah ouais.
It's disactivated.
Et on a
There was a small technical issue there.
Ah ouais, le bug, ça fait...
Well, yeah, bugs. Scary, right? It's the prototypes. I didn't think it could happen. It can happen.
PSA has planned for 3 years of development before beginning production of the self-driving option on cars available for sale, so that all drivers might enjoy this special experience.
Là, je suis pas
Here,
dans la
I'm
voiture.
not in a car.
Là, je suis dans les
I'm in
transports.
mass transportation,
Mais autonome
but autonomous.
et particulier. C'est le taxi.
It's a driverless taxi without a taxi driver.
D'ailleurs.
It's not really a car
La voiture,
anymore.
en fait.
Convinced that the car of the future is autonomous, automobile makers are engaged in a worldwide race. Having served as executive vice president of Renault and board member at Nissan, Patrick Pelata now advises car makers in California and France and has a unique observation point on this metamorphosis.
Je pense que la partie plaisir de
I think that the element of a driver's pleasure will remain, which will probably center in on particular moments.
particulier.
And the rest of the time, when, frankly, driving is a chore, will become something else and everyone will gain some time.
How, over just a few years, did this fever take over car makers across the planet? It all started with this man. Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla, elbowed past the automobile giants who had ruled for over a century with the combustion engine. With much showmanship and hype, he was able to make the electric car into an object of desire. He bet on the luxury electric car, which was already potentially autonomous, through autopilot, an option that takes command of the vehicle. Launched in 2012 with the Model S, it received authorization for use on the condition that the driver remains attentive, hands on the steering wheel.
Tesla started installing radars and cameras on their cars to eventually allow for self-driving. Nobody took it seriously, except that a year later, they came up with autopilot. And then journalists and everyone started to say, wow, it's very good. And it was very clear that in California, compared to other cars costing over $100,000, including Mercedes, BMWs, Lexus, Toyotas, it was much better. And that made everyone realize that this was getting serious.
For over a century, electric models had tried to replace the combustive motor, to no avail.
I think that 7 or 8 years ago, the auto industry believed that everything would remain the same. For example, when Renault Nissan, the first along with Tesla, got an electric car to market, Volkswagen said it would be a very good technology, but for 2035. They were disdainful. But they didn't take long, probably not more than 2 years, to change their minds and get to work seriously. And people such as BMW, Mercedes, General Motors also got going very quickly.
Beyond the Tesla effect, the electric car became important for builders because of the environment at the moment, and to help forget the Dieselgate emissions scandal. This amateur footage shot at Detroit's Pontiac Silverdome in Michigan reveals the size of the scandal. Of the 11 million cars it caused, 500,000 were recalled in the US by Volkswagen so as to change the software that allowed them to trick the emissions tests. Electric cars allow the builders to divert the attention of consumers, suddenly aware that transportation accounts for 15% of CO2 emissions. But it's public authorities, not car builders, that are bringing electric cars to the forefront. Governments across the planet are tasked with reducing harmful emissions into the atmosphere. For example, in California, you must have at least one zero-emissions model to be allowed to sell cars. Electric cars are the only valid alternative technology to combustion. As a result, Fiat sells electric Fiat 500 in California and nowhere else in the world. In China, the government has also stepped into the country's automobile industry. Facing pollution and overpopulation in their major cities, the electric car appeared as an obvious solution.
Around 2010, the Chinese announced in their 5-year plan that by 2020, they would have 5 million cars on their streets. And nobody took it seriously. At the time, the Chinese were producing a few thousand electric cars. And then in the last 3 years, it's gone up 50, 60, 80% each year. They've become the world's #1 market for electric vehicles. And I think that they'll reach their 5 million cars by 2020.
In major cities such as Beijing, several policies have been applied to encourage inhabitants to buy an electric car. Owners of gasoline cars are not allowed to use them every day, and to buy one, they must take part in a lottery. A person in Beijing has a 1 in 200 chance of winning, and the lottery is held only every other month. Dilu lives in this northeast Beijing neighborhood. After trying unsuccessfully for 6 years to buy a car, she's decided to buy an electric one. The only way to get around the lottery. But even that solution won't help with the traffic jams.
I live beyond the 5th Ring Road, near the 6th Ring Road. The company where I work is near the 3rd Ring Road. And so every day, I cross the 5th, 4th, and 3rd Ring Roads to get to work. You see the parts marked in red? There are lots of traffic jams. There are not enough parking spaces in the neighborhood. So we have this kind of parking.
For the purchase of the electric car, Dilu benefited from a subvention from the government, covering a quarter of the car's price. It's a BYD, a Chinese brand, the everyman's car maker in China. Dilu knows that at rush hour, it will take her an hour to cover the 16 kilometers to her office.
There's too much pressure on the traffic in Beijing. As consumer power has risen in China, more and more people can buy cars now. It's not like before.
Dilu is emblematic of this middle class that's exploded across China, especially in the big cities, a middle class that has been strongly encouraged to use the electric car. Following Beijing's high pollution over the past few years, all the most recent cars have been equipped to fight against fine particle pollution.
Here is the PM 2.5. Its purpose is to detect and filter out pollution. The system can control the rate of pollution inside and outside the car. This filter system means that I no longer need to wear a mask in the car.
The spikes in pollution, especially frequent over these past 2 years, have left Beijing's population aware of the ecology.
Most people are motivated to reduce waste and pollution. Nothing can replace the air that we breathe. Each person must make an effort to improve the air quality.
BYD is riding on this ecological wave. It's the symbol of this young Chinese electric car industry that wants to challenge the historical builders. A battery maker that acquired a nearly bankrupt car company in 2002, it is now the third largest electric car maker in the world behind Tesla and Renault-Nissan. Located on the outskirts of Shenzhen in the south of China, BYD's factory employs 30,000 people. And as in every car factory across the world, it all begins with robots that prepare the vehicle's frames. Several assembly lines are in motion at once, assembling cars with all types of motorizations. On this line for preparing motors, there are electric motors, recognizable by their orange high-tension wiring, gas engines with their oil levels, and hybrid motors combining the two motorizations. These technicians are able to assemble 3 different types of motors in the same day. They're ready to adapt to all the market changes. If the Chinese government were to completely ban gas and diesel motors, then China would be ready to produce only electric cars.
They become the planet's #1 market for electric vehicles, and that's a very powerful movement whose consequences we can't yet see. Because if they manage to bring down the cost, if they manage to be the first to export in mass quantities, then it's going to have an impact everywhere.
The automobile world is shaking. The specter of the Chinese electric car floats over the entire planet. Perhaps tomorrow we too will be driving a BYD.
It feels better to keep working for the good of all mankind.
BYD can afford getting Leonardo DiCaprio to mark their place as the world's 3rd biggest car maker.
You can make history tomorrow.
Behind the claim of battling pollution, the electric car has also taken an important economic stake in the worldwide automobile market. China has already won a dominant position on the battery market, that 300-kilo plaque necessary to power the vehicle of the future. 10 years ago, this piece was unknown on assembly lines. Now it's at the crux of the battle. China's fabrication capacity triples every 2 years, while it is barely existent in Europe and the US. The American consulting firm AlixPartners, a specialist in the automobile industry and famous for its turnaround of General Motors in 2009, is keeping close tabs on this market. Laurent Petitson is their managing director.
If tomorrow a wave of the magic wand took us to 100% electric cars, then about 30% of the vehicle's value would shift suddenly to China, since that's where most of the batteries are now designed and produced. The challenge for Europe and the US is to produce batteries and electric motors so as to keep a hand on the value chain in the future for the vehicle of the future.
Not only is the global automobile industry going through a major transformation, it also has to prove itself in the field of autonomy, this unprecedented technological revolution for cars. This new industrial journey means that builders must buy technology, lots of technology. And if there's one place above all others for this, it's Silicon Valley.
Alors, San Francisco, la Silicon Valley...
San Francisco, Silicon Valley, California in general, represents a quarter of the world's venture capital.
Venture capital, le capital risque mondial.
This is an area where there's already a web of creativity, engineers, and capital to finance the engineers and their ideas, which is already substantial.
Considérable.
The second characteristic of California, and especially San Francisco, is that people like to try things out. Someone who brings an idea to the table can immediately tell if it's going to work. And if it's going to work, well, it's bingo. He can take it to the entire US and then the rest of the world.
And thus it's in California that the first self-driving car was seen, the Google car. And the car's father, the brilliant engineer Chris Urmson, a graduate of Carnegie Mellon University's prestigious robotics lab, is also very clear about the philosophy behind the project.
For the last 130 years, we've been working around that least reliable part of the car, the driver. We've made the car stronger. We've added seatbelts. We've added airbags. And over the last kind of decade, we've actually started trying to make the car smarter to fix that bug, the driver.
93% of car accidents are the result of human error. Autonomous cars would be 100 times safer than you. Google has a dedicated subsidiary, Waymo, having already logged 3.5 million kilometers. Famous for its search engine, the American company is a symbol of the world's digitalization. And after the record, the book, shopping, the car is up next. But will the behemoths of the traditional car industry let go of their piece of the pie? A market that may soon represent 100 million brand new cars sold each year. Will they too allow their market to be disrupted? Maynard Holliday served as special assistant to the Undersecretary for Defense under the Obama administration. He is now a senior engineer for the RAND Corporation, one of America's most influential think tanks.
There are going to be winners and losers depending on the investment and decisions a lot of these car companies make. And so you can look back on a lot of markets that have been disrupted. And so you think about digital photography. You know, Kodak owned the film business and actually had patents for, you know, digital sensors, but were very comfortable in the film business. Sony, because they owned a record label, could not see themselves doing something like iTunes. So they got disrupted.
Being disrupted by Google or Apple is the worst nightmare of Carlos Ghosn, Renault-Nissan's CEO. While under threat from the digital economy's leaders, traditional automakers are also competing amongst themselves. In the spring of 2016, two self-driving models from the Chinese make Chang'an crossed the 2,000 kilometers between Chongqing and Beijing. Today, car makers are investing more in research and development than the pharmaceutical industry. The big winners of this gold rush are the makers of the key technology of the autonomous car, starting with the digital sensors that will take the place of the driver's eyes. It's common to come across test cars along California's roads. They're recognizable from the strange instrument attached to their roofs. It's a LiDAR, made up of thousands of laser beams that measure the distance from nearby objects, up to 3 centimeters precision. In expectation of the autonomous car's popularity, the LiDAR business has truly soared.
One of the challenges is you want to see all the way around the car so you can see these other traffic coming towards our car. And sure enough, if you look at the LiDAR screen, you can see all the cars around us. So when these cars are merging, you're not going to hit something in the lane next to you because you can't see off to the side. That's the advantage of 360-degree visualization of the environment. And so essentially, LiDAR is the eyes of the robot.
The Velodyne LiDAR company has become the world leader in the field, with its offices in San Jose at the heart of Silicon Valley, in a hangar as immense as the company's ambitions.
We're just starting the autonomous revolution right now. So today on the marketplace, people are putting hundreds of cars onto the roads. In the future, that will be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of vehicles. So it's important that we have the manufacturing capacity to support that expansion.
For now, LiDARs cost $10,000 each, but the price should come down.
Our LiDARs are mostly electronics, so they will follow the volume price curve. As we increase our volumes and the industry takes more products, we're able to flow through the product life curve. So these will be quite economical sensors when produced in high volume. Three-digit numbers are possibles, which we think could be in the next 3 to 5 years.
In this digital earthquake that is shaking up the car industry, Europe is also rushing to stay in the fight. In Berlin, the focus is on the autonomous car's other key technology, cartography. The three German makers, Daimler, BMW, and Audi, are working with the company HERE, one of cartography's leaders alongside Google Maps. The Frenchman Cyril Lehmann moved to Berlin to develop this new cartography technology.
It's a unique momentum right now. Technology, business model, maturity of the market, and maturity of the consumer. Everything is kind of like aligned at this point of time in order to achieve with this revolution.
42 years old, Cyril is part of this generation of engineers inventing the car of the future, having grown up around old-fashioned cars.
I can remind the first car when I was a child. I can remind about specific moment of our life when we were driving to specific location during holidays, enjoying this time with my family and sharing these unique moments in the car. So cars always be some kind of emotion for me, and it's still now. Talking with my son, I can figure out how much his vision of the automotive has changed regarding mine. And probably my son will directly jump in a world where a car will drive by themselves.
Cyril's software provides cartography, a sort of atlas that's much more precise than GPS.
If I'm just looking through the window, and if I'm looking this building, for instance, it was not existing a few years ago. So when we talk about an autonomous driving map, we need to update the map in real time. It's not a question of months, it's not a question of weeks, it's not even a question of days, it's a question of seconds. It's because we are living in a world in motion. You need to update the map in real time.
The challenge that cartography now faces is to know the traffic situation at that very moment, the jams, the road work, every change, so that the car's brain can make the right decisions. Billions of pieces of data collected through the car's own captors, already at work in the equipment of the cars of the three German builders. A sort of shared overview in real time. The autonomous car, as it's now being tested by automakers, has LiDAR eyes, a great GPS, knows how to drive on the highway, but can it drive as well as you or me? Most importantly, can it drive anywhere, even the most challenging places? Amongst the nightmare settings of international car makers is Paris, France's Place de l'Étoile. Arnaud de la Fortelle, a professor at Mines Paris and the University of California, Berkeley, is seeking to answer the question, how can we teach a car to drive on its own around this dangerous merry-go-round?
There, I start on the Place de l'Étoile. The light has turned green, the cars in front have started, I'm getting to the cobblestones and I need to deal with the other cars. To start off, I'm going to follow the cars, because that's the simplest. And here's a first scooter speeding at me, though I had the right of way. I'm overtaken from the left, which is normal, but I'm also being overtaken from the right, which is not normal. There's even a cyclist on Place de l'Étoile. Must be courageous. And the machine is going to have to handle all of these challenges. The autonomous vehicle is going to have to be able to drive in a place where a certain number of the rules that he was given as strict do not apply. Because the machine is binary. Either there is the rule or there's not the rule. So we're going to need to be able to explain to the machines that there are places where we are mostly in the rules and other places where we are mostly not in the rules. So here I'm approaching the Champs-Élysées. And I decide that I don't want to exit onto the Champs-Élysées by giving it another trajectory. You can see that the car's angle is not the same. The problem is that I still don't know if the other people understand what I want to do, so I'm going to look at them. I look very carefully at the cars on the right and the left to see if they understand. And that, since the autonomous car doesn't have a face for people to look at, is something that's not easy to figure out how to negotiate. So this takes the prize. We have a police car that's actually going against the traffic. That's absolutely amazing. I can't even imagine how an autonomous vehicle could understand the situation. But it went very well. You see that people are intelligent after all. That's what we call the social element of driving. Could an autonomous vehicle have done the same thing? I'm guessing that now, and even in 5 years from now, an autonomous vehicle would have stopped 10 times. Because it would have been afraid. Fear doesn't exist for a machine. But it would have seen a risk. And its way of coping would have been to stop, because of the risk of collision. It's going to learn. Nothing's lost. But it might have to go around the Place de l'Étoile 10,000 times in order to learn how the Place de l'Étoile behaves, and specifically Place de l'Étoile.
That's the key. These cars will improve their driving by covering as many kilometers as possible. And who drives the most kilometers? It's Uber, the ride-sharing service that has already disrupted the market for traditional taxis. It wasn't slow in signing up for driverless cars. After Tesla and Google, it's Uber's turn to upend an industry that has been rolling smoothly for over a century. They're the surprise guest of the big race to the self-driving car. Uber has had a fleet of self-driving cars since 2016 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and in San Francisco since 2017. Uber has invested heavily in recruiting the best robotic experts for its Pittsburgh research labs. The most recent recruit is head of Uber Advanced Technology's third Research and Development Center, Raquel Urtasun, in Toronto.
Uber is not planning to build its own self-driving car from scratch because it's a technology company. It's not a car manufacturer company. And there's many companies that are very good at that, right? Uber is trying to develop the hardware and the software that will be necessary to get self-driving cars at scale in our ride-sharing network. I basically developed what could be considered as the brain of the self-driving car. The technology behind all the algorithms that we build is actually deep learning, what is rebranded as AI these days, which is very interesting because it's the same technology that can serve many, many purposes. In this case, almost everything that goes in the stack of a self-driving car. So perception, prediction, planning, and mapping are all very important components of a self-driving car. And the reason why is that none of these components is actually perfect.
Behind the closed doors of research and development departments, the automobile is becoming a high-tech industry. A symbol of this excitement is tech giant Intel's spectacular purchase in 2017 of the Israeli startup Mobileye and its driver assistance systems for $15 billion.
$15 billion is huge. It's worth even more. It's now worth about as much as Peugeot's PSA. For a company with just about 1,000 employees, you can no longer sit on your laurels. There are new avenues opening up. The automobile industry's entire value chain has been overturned. It's a slightly Darwinian state.
At this stage, it's hard to know who will come out the winner. An event hit like a cold shower in May of 2016, the first ever fatal accident for the driverless car. May 7, 2016. The Tesla's autopilot doesn't identify the truck that passes in front of it, likely blinded by the sun shining off the white trailer. The investigation would reveal that despite warnings, the driver did not seize back control. Was he really sitting in the driver's seat, his hands on the wheels, as the law demands? There's reason to doubt.
Currently in the United States, over 30,000 people are killed in accidents every year, and we accept that because it's human error. Will we accept some lesser number, but have that number be due to machine error? How safe is safe enough? We don't know yet.
Traffic is getting
In the
worse.
meantime, a utopian safety is one of the main selling points of the autonomous car.
Because the urgency is so large, in the time I have given this talk today, 34 people have died on America's roads. How soon can we bring it out? Well, it's hard to say because it's a really complicated problem. But these are my two boys. My oldest son is 11. And that means in 4.5 years, he's going to be able to get his driver's license. My team and I are committed to making sure that doesn't happen. Thank you.
What Chris Urmson passes off as a great urgency is in fact an old dream from the 50s.
You're now under automatic control. Hands-off steering.
Back when General Motors was dreaming of cars for the year 2000 that could be directed from control towers.
Here we go on the high-speed safety lane. Ah, this is the life. Safe, cool, comfortable. Mind if I smoke a cigar?
Oh, not with this wonderful air conditioning.
Hey, you want some ice cream or a cool drink?
Orange juice, please.
Oh, me too.
I'm gonna go for the ice cream.
The year 2000 has come and gone, and there's still no control tower along our highways. But the idea of a safer road persists. As Chris Urmson said,
to fix that bug, the driver.
Does the driver agree to be pushed down to the status of bug? Faced with the industry's offer, a strong tendency is developing amid consumers. One that's shaking the automobile universe even more. In cities across the world, such as Beijing, consumers are increasingly foregoing the personal car. Rather than be the owner of a car that's parked an average 95% of the time, they'd prefer to use a service. Like most of her friends, this young woman is in the habit of ordering a Didi Zuqing, the Chinese answer to Uber.
You can use the systems like Didi or to sharing a car. That's enough for everyone to get wherever you want. So there's no need to own a car for your own health, for the health of Beijing, somewhere we love.
Ding embodies the new city-dwelling consumer, for whom the car is more of a burden than a freedom.
You have to think about where to park the car. You have to stay in the car, whatever how bad, how terrible the traffic is. You can't leave your car. But you can get off whenever you want if you are on the service car.
The death of the individual car has been announced. Starting in 2011, the city of Paris installed a system of electric cars available to all by subscription. In the years since, car-sharing systems have flourished across the planet. Mercedes and BMW each launched their own service. In China, the traditional state car rental company Shuqi created GoFun. Its offices are in Beijing's business district. Their marketing director is convinced that car sharing is the future of our cities.
In the future, I think maybe 3, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, like for example in Beijing, when you live in the city and when you want to go out somewhere, there will be only two kind of services available. The first thing is the public transportation system, which is organized by the government, like subways, like buses, maybe bicycles. The second way, you tell your mobile where you want to go, what you want to do. Either you go to the public service system, either you use your private one.
The research firms are unanimous. Cars as our parents knew them are over. Nicolas Louvet is the CEO of the French research specialists 6T.
We're finding that fewer youths are passing their license under the age of 25. But wait, it's getting later and later amongst young people who live in the major cities of modern economies. So why is that? At first we thought it's because the license costs a lot. Then we thought, no, it's the car that's expensive. So we made low-cost cars, etc. But what we're actually seeing isn't really this. Emancipation is less and less associated with cars and increasingly with smartphones. Since the smartphone's arrival, people are increasingly leaving their fathers and mothers at 13 to go to their room and watch YouTubers.
Freedom is no longer the car, it's the smartphone. And that's what weighs on us when we drive, to no longer be able to use one's smartphone.
What's interesting is that smartphones, this travel time that once had no value, has started to have some for people who sent their emails before reaching work, or who travel listening to music, or play video games, read their newspaper, read their files.
Will car-sharing services bring back those who've grown bored of cars? In San Francisco, one only needs to stand at a corner to see how the ride-sharing applications are eating away at the market for private cars. This car is working for Uber, this one for its competitor Lyft, and this one is working for both. Today at this corner, every other car is a rideshare. A German research firm had fun estimating the proportion of rideshares that will be available by the time the autonomous car is perfected.
They say that perhaps in 2030, or whenever this technology is completely available, this will cover up to 1/3 of all the kilometers driven in the world. Not just in modern economies, but across the planet. Will be of that sort, what we call autonomous cars on demand.
The autonomous vehicles belonging to rideshare companies would take over the market for individual cars. That's why the Uber and the Lyfts of the world have become a serious threat to traditional car makers.
If such a large proportion of trips made and kilometers are provided by operators such as Uber, that means that a huge part of the business becomes mobility. We're selling kilometers, journeys. Builders run the risk of finding themselves in the situation where the biggest part of the value chain is no longer them, but the operator.
They forgot about us. How are we gonna get home? Let's call it Didi?
Didi Suqing is the international champion of mobility. Headquartered to the north of Beijing, in a neighborhood resembling America's Silicon Valley, Didi Suqing is breaking all the records.
We do 25 million rides a day. That is twice as many as everybody else added up together, which means we get so much data we can train our algorithm better and smarter. And that's very important because when autonomous vehicles go into their mature stage, when they go out to win support from the government, communities, citizens, parents, right? You need to make sure they're safe. They have the best support system.
Didi Zuqing is looking further yet with a more global strategy. By collecting all this data, Didi Zuqing aims to offer a global management of transportation to all of China's cities.
We actually have the most accurate and complete picture of transportation flows in any Chinese city. We are already helping over 20 cities in China to improve their traffic. How? We can not only describe the real-time data, but also forecast within 30 minutes time to tell them, look, this traffic jam is going to happen. We will be able to dispatch enough rides, cars, bikes, minibuses, buses towards that direction so that that traffic jam never has to happen. This is the world of perfect mobility that we imagine for the city.
The robot taxi is king in Didi Zuqing's wonderful world. No more traffic jams thanks to the real-time remote management of traffic flows. Hiding behind the autonomous car, the operators are vying for governance of the city in lieu of public authorities. The privatization of public spaces has become a major stake in this revolution. And with it comes the specter of Big Brother, when the autonomous car operators will know everything about our movements. A young American imagined an alternative autonomous car project as a means of escaping from the grips of these mobility behemoths. George Hotz, also known as GeoHot, first came to attention while still in high school in 2007 by hacking the iPhone. Now this young computer genius wants to show that with just $1,000 of equipment bought over the internet, it was possible to teach any car how to drive.
How do humans learn to drive? Well, they watch other people drive. And then they try it and they get better. And that's exactly what we're doing here. So right now we're just in the watching phase. We have not told this car anything about driving. We've shown it 10 hours of human driving footage, and we're like, here is what the human did. Behave like that human as much as you can.
He asked volunteers to share their driving information to help create a collaborative autonomous car.
This is driving, man.
He's thumbing his nose at the automobile industry. From San Francisco to Beijing, passing through Berlin, the race of the self-driving car is well underway.
Il y a beaucoup d'argent qui arrive.
Lots of money is coming in. There's a wave, that's certain. We'll see if it's a bubble afterwards, if it explodes. I personally think that we are just in a very important moment of technological transformation. That is at the crossroads with huge social needs. Pollution, global warming, time lost in traffic. There are lots of reasons to invest in these things.
Whether they invade our roads in the form of options and luxury cars or fleets of ride shares, the autonomous car promises to bring order to our cities at a time when urban population growth should reach 50% between now and 2025. But who will set the rules of this new world?
People should be skeptical about promises made by companies, and they should look to their government to provide standards. Because today, you look at the airline, air travel industry, there is no airline that is saying that we are safer than another because they all have to meet a safety standard. And so this is the case for future autonomous vehicles. They should all have to meet a standard. And what that standard is yet to be determined.
Fortunately,
I'm going to go very, very fast here.
There will always be video games.
I'm going to try and reach 300.